Fire under neon. The neon never truly slept in Sector 12. It dripped like liquid fire from cracked hollow screens, spilled across rain-streaked glass, and crawled through the tight alleys of the city like veins of restless light. Mira moved silently among the shadows cast by endless advertisements and flickering signs, her coat pulled tight against the chill that wasn't just from the damp air. The hum of data streams, the low buzz of drones overhead, and the chatter of disjointed voices in a dozen languages filled the heavy night. Her badge glinted under the harsh neon glare, a symbol of access, but never acceptance. Within the glass and steel fortress of the Arctis Corporation's data tower, Mira was just another cog, a ghost in the machine. The sterile halls buzzed with whispered secrets, digital ghosts of memories collected from countless lives. Memories harvested, archived, twisted into weapons of control. Tonight, her task was different. The files she decrypted whispered something darker, experiments beyond the cold algorithms and surveillance systems she'd come to expect. These were not just data points, not mere lines of code. People were being dissected, their memories sliced apart, rewritten, and erased. Mira's heart clenched as she scrolled through encrypted logs, her eyes catching fragments of faces that seemed to plead from the screen. Voices muted, lives broken. The weight of violation pressed against her chest. This was no longer espionage. It was a crime against the very essence of humanity. A sudden noise startled her, footsteps echoing in the hallway outside. She quickly masked the files, sliding the screen into a loop of routine data feeds. Her breath came fast, cold against the back of her throat. Around her, the fluorescent lights flickered, casting jittery shadows over the cold steel walls. Her thoughts raced. Every system she worked on, every memory she'd helped archive, was now stained with this new truth. To stay silent was to betray everything she ever believed in. But defiance meant death, or worse. Mira stepped away from the console, her fingers trembling despite the resolve hardening inside her. She glanced out the narrow window. Rain slicked the city streets, neon reflecting in puddles like broken promises. The restless city pulsed below, unaware of the fire kindling deep within the corporate maze. She took a deep breath, the electric haze buzzing around her nerves. The choice stretched before her: obey and become complicit, or break free and risk everything. Outside, distant sirens wailed, an echo of unrest in the sprawling enclaves, a world simmering on the edge of chaos. Mira clenched her jaw. The night was thick with possibility and danger. Her heart beat with the rhythm of rebellion waiting to ignite. With one last glance at the glowing screens, she turned and stepped into the shadows. The rain had soaked through Mira's coat by the time she reached the entrance to the underground market, a cracked subway tunnel lit by dangling cables and jury-rigged LEDs that pulsed like the heartbeat of a dying city. Neon graffiti glowed on damp walls, sigils of resistance, anarchist slogans, slurs against Arctis Corp. Somewhere in the dark, a saxophone cried out an artificial blues tune, fractured by static. The air reeked of ozone, oil, and old despair. She pulled her hood lower, masking the sleek implant behind her ear. Corporate models were rare here, dangerous. If anyone recognized her as Arctis property, she'd be lucky to leave with her limbs intact. The crowd pressed close, augmented teens with wireframe eyes, old soldiers with synthetic spines, street mystics whispering code prayers. These weren't citizens, they were survivors, discarded by the same machine she's faithfully served. Her gaze lingered on a boy no older than 12, juggling scrap tech for credits. A tattoo of a barcode stretched across his neck, half burned off, her stomach twisted. She reached a rusted stall at the far end of the tunnel. The merchant was exactly where he said he'd be. An ancient man, skin like dry leather, eyes clouded by old cybernetic failure. No greetings, no names. He passed her a chip. It was no larger than her thumbnail, but it felt like a grenade in her palm. Level 7 clearance data, the man rasped. Memory suppression protocols. Neural overwrite tests. It's real. You expose this, they'll burn the city to keep it buried. Mira nodded, too tense to speak. She paid in untraceable crypto keys, then vanished into the maze again. Behind her, the vendor packed up fast, like someone who expected to be dead by morning. Her return to the surface was a blur of shadows and shifting light. Drones buzzed overhead. Somewhere nearby, a gunfight echoed. Short, brutal. Life continued. Back at her sector pod, Mira triple-locked the door and pulled blackout curtains over the flickering plexiglass. Her home was barely a room. A bed, a sink, and a terminal buried in scavenged shielding. She booted the system and slotted in the chip. The files decrypted with a hiss, like a snake waking up. Lines of code, classified video logs, surgical records, anonymized victim profiles. Dozens of them, hundreds. Most were poor, undocumented, off-grid, the perfect targets. She watched a clip. A man strapped to a chair, screaming as pulses of blue light wiped his mind clean. Another showed a child, maybe 7, eyes wide with fear as electrodes danced across her skull. Then, silence, smiles, compliance. Arctis hadn't just experimented. They'd succeeded. They were building programmable people. Mira felt bile rise in her throat. Her entire life, she'd believed the corporation's propaganda, that they brought order, innovation, salvation, that they saved people from chaos. But this was something else. This was genocide of the soul. Her fingers hovered over the terminal as she opened the encrypted tunnel to the Enclave network. She didn't bother masking her signal. They'd find her anyway. The files uploaded slowly, packet by packet. A digital scream aimed at the heart of the system. She attached a message. You were right. The system is broken. This is what they've done. Spread it. Burn it all. Send. The silence afterward was unbearable. The city outside continued its rhythm. Distant sirens, humming monorails, the low throb of arc reactors. But inside her room, something had shifted. She was no longer a cog in the machine. She was a fuse. Mira rose, gathered what gear she could. A scrambler drone, a shock baton, her last vial of synth blood in case she was wounded. Then she opened her hidden compartment and pulled out an old jacket she hadn't worn in years, black leather, with the faded emblem of a forgotten resistance movement, a clenched fist over circuitry. She put it on. Before stepping out, she looked at her reflection in the cracked mirror. Gone was the polished executive. In her place stood someone new, someone dangerous. As she left, the Enclave network was already lighting up. Pings, nodes activating, old cells awakening. The truth was moving faster than the system could suppress it. And in the streets, under the neon glare and digital advertisements, the first sparks of revolt had begun to flicker. The neon storm outside was just beginning to swell when the signal came through. A single tone on her comms, 3 short pulses, then silence. The echo of an old revolution. Mira ducked into an alley off Sector 17, her boots splashing in puddles of oil and data runoff. The skyline above blinked with synthetic constellations, massive ad hollows beaming down slogans from the corporate pantheon. Arctis is order. Your mind is your greatest asset. Let us protect it. Lies so old they'd become ambient noise. She reached the meeting point, a half-collapsed parking tower on the edge of the Red Line. Graffiti covered every wall, layers deep. Some fresh, some decades old. Symbols of rebellions past, buried but not dead. 2 figures stepped out of the shadows. Both wore low-grade cloaking fields that shimmered like heat waves. One was tall, muscle-bound, with half his jaw replaced by raw steel. The other, smaller, moved like a ghost. Mira raised both hands. "You tracked the leak," she said. "I sent the data." The bigger one just stared. The ghost spoke. A woman. Her voice was dry and sharp. "Name: Mira, former Arctis security. ID no longer matters." "That depends who's hunting you," the woman said. "You know what you triggered?" Mira nodded. "I exposed truth. That's what matters." A pause. The bigger one scanned her with a palm device. His eyes narrowed. "She's clean. No trackers. Not bleeding." The woman stepped forward. "Then welcome back, soldier." She tossed Mira a blindfold. "Standard protocol. You don't get to know the route." Mira hesitated, then slipped it on. They moved fast, through corridors that smelled of mold and rust, past coded doors and mechanical buzzers, deeper and deeper underground. At some point, the scent of scorched circuits filled the air. Someone had burned out surveillance arrays. Recently. The blindfold came off in a room that looked like it had once been a data vault. Now it was a war room. Holograms buzzed above a central table, each showing real-time heat maps of Arctis surveillance zones, known drone routes, satellite blind spots. Dozens of figures moved in silence, scanning feeds, decrypting signals, patching old tech. Many were young. Almost all were visibly augmented. Some out of necessity, others out of defiance. The woman who led her in removed her hood. Her hair was silver, shaved at the sides. One eye was organic, the other flickered with soft green light. "Name's Reza," she said. "I run this node." Mira gave a slow nod. "How many nodes are left?" "Not enough." A beat of silence. Reza walked to the center console and tapped a feed. A new map appeared. Neurogrid Phase 3 deployment. a network of neural overwrite beacons, each anchored near population hubs, silent, invisible, trigger-ready. "They're not testing anymore," Reza said. "They're rolling it out, full scale. They're going to overwrite thousands, wipe dissent, reset whole districts." "Rebuild obedience," Mira muttered. "No," Reza said. "Destroy memory. End resistance. Make people forget they ever hated the system." Mira's breath caught. "I leaked the files," she said. "It's already in the Enclave net." Reza shook her head. "Won't be enough. They've already started locking down the mesh, choking off subnetworks. They'll deepfake denials, plant counterproofs, start framing whistleblowers. The signal's fading under the noise." Mira clenched her fists. "Then we need a broadcast stronger than denial." Reza turned. "We hit the grid itself." A murmur went through the room. Reza walked to a wall panel and pulled it aside, revealing a miniature schematic of an Arctis hub. Grid Spire 9, the tallest data tower in New Europa. Mira recognized it immediately. "It runs the neural subroutines," Reza said. "If we hijack the uplink, we can reverse the feed, send out the truth, bypass all filters." "Hard-wired truth," whispered Mira. "But it's a suicide run," Reza added. "We breach it, they'll nuke the site." Mira didn't flinch. "I designed half that spire's firewall," she said. "I can get us in." Reza studied her a moment. "Then you lead the team." The room fell into a deep hush. No protests, just a shift in gravity. The air felt heavier. Mira stepped forward. "We've all lost something to Arctis," she said. "Some of you were born under their rule. Others fought and bled just to survive. But they've never feared us. Not truly, because they've never seen us united." She pointed at the spire in the hologram. "We take their voice. We give it back to the people." The alley reeked of rot, synthetic oil, and wet neon. Lyra crouched behind a rusting container, her breath shallow, her pulse loud in her ears. Overhead, drones buzzed like metal insects, scanning the shadows with cold, artificial precision. This part of Enclave 9 was forgotten by the corporate maps. No cameras, no protocols, just ruin and rust. And now, resistance. Keon was already waiting near the breach in the wall, his face a blur under a smeared visor. He nodded once and motioned her through. No words were exchanged. There wasn't time. Inside the tunnel, the noise of the city faded. Darkness wrapped around them like a grave. Ahead, the resistance was gathering. Men and women forged from the ruins, bearing scars instead of uniforms. They moved like ghosts through forgotten corridors, past derelict clinics and shattered vending hubs. The network of abandoned infrastructure pulsed with quiet rebellion. At every checkpoint, Lyra saw makeshift weapons, hacked drones, eyes that burned with something she hadn't seen in years, hope wrapped in rage. The weapon slung across her shoulder wasn't meant for killing. It was an injector, originally designed for surgical neural uploads. Modified now, it would do something far more dangerous: flood the neurocore with unfiltered memory data. Not fiction, not implanted narratives. Truth, raw, violent, human, if she reached the core. Every step toward it felt heavier. She kept replaying the footage on the drive, Children strapped into memory chairs, laughing with voices not their own. Soldiers breaking down after realizing their entire pasts had been fabricated. Families wiped clean and reprogrammed. All of it buried beneath layers of corporate gloss and patriotic slogans. Her boots echoed as they reached the final segment of the tunnel. Above them, the neurocore loomed, a spire of glass and chrome piercing the night. Lyra felt small beneath it, as if standing in the shadow of a god she no longer feared. Keon pointed toward the east maintenance hatch. Fewer sensors, narrower access route, higher risk of being trapped. She didn't hesitate. Neither did the others. Then, gunfire. Short, sharp bursts from the exit ahead. Sparks flew. 2 rebels dropped instantly. No time to mourn. The rest pushed forward, return fire lighting up the dark like stuttering fireworks. The hatch opened. Smoke poured in. Lyra coughed, stumbled forward. She could barely see. She felt a hand grab her, Keon's, and pull her through. Behind them, the resistance fought to hold the door. Screams mixed with static. Explosions shook the floor beneath her boots. Inside, the neurocore's lower level was eerily silent. White walls, bright lights, polished floors, untouched by blood or soot. It was sterile, inhuman. Lyra moved quickly to the access terminal. She plugged in the drive. Nothing. She tried again. A low hum started, soft, then rising like a choir of ghosts. Lights flickered as the injector activated. Screens burst to life. Faces appeared, dozens, hundreds. Captured memories unraveling in real time. Everything the system had buried was now pouring out. Above, network relays overloaded. Signal boosters lit up like fireflies. The truth was no longer trapped. Lyra's hands trembled. Behind her, Keon screamed, a short, guttural cry. She turned just in time to see him collapse, blood pooling under his chest. A corporate security agent stood over him, weapon raised. Lyra fired. Once, twice. The guard dropped. She fell beside Keon. His eyes fluttered open, then stilled. She didn't cry. There wasn't time. More guards were coming. She could hear them, boots pounding, orders shouted, metal scrapping metal. She turned back to the console and initiated the final sequence. The injector flared bright blue. Data streamed faster now, unfiltered, unedited, raw. The system choked on it. In homes across the enclave, screens flickered. Citizens stared at images that shattered the narratives they'd lived by. Children realized their memories weren't real. Veterans saw the lies they were built upon. Executives felt their reputations collapse under the weight of hidden crimes. Lyra's vision blurred. Blood stained her jacket. She could feel her body failing. But the work was done. In those final seconds, as the lights around her dimmed, she imagined the city not as it was, but as it could be. Not perfect, not clean, but awake. She smiled through the pain. Above, the skyline trembled, not from bombs or riots, but from the silent collapse of a system that had once seemed eternal. And in that collapse, a spark. The fire spread faster than predicted. Not flames on walls, though some towers would crumble, but fire in minds, in airwaves, in the cracks of corporate myths. It wasn't arson, it was revelation. By nightfall, Asphodel's perimeter was drowned in bodies. Not protesters anymore. Witnesses. Survivors. Thousands filled the square, not chanting slogans, just watching the jumbo screens. Watching what Vera had exposed. Children in tanks, suspended like broken marionettes. Neurographs of fragmented memories looping on monitors. The stolen data, the identity maps burned into gray matter. No narration, no filters, just the raw, unbearable truth. The system blinked. Drones hovered above, silent, awaiting orders that wouldn't come. Defense units stood still, exosuits steaming in the night air. Executives and AI-led crisis teams paralyzed. No one wanted their name tied to a massacre live-streamed in ultra-high definition. Inside the complex, Malik knelt beside a containment pod, overriding security locks with a custom neural bridge. A technician beside him cursed in whispering loops as she fought the failsafes. The children, some 24, were alive. Unconscious, drugged, but their vitals held steady. Already, volunteers in thermoplastic suits were carrying them out, gently, like relics from a forgotten past. They'd need care, years of reorientation. Their minds were data farms. Reconstructing identities from fragments would be like pulling ghosts from static. No one knew if it was even possible, but they had to try. Someone handed Vera a microphone-linked transmitter. "You started this," the voice said. "You need to finish it." She stared at the device. For a long second, the urge to refuse crawled up her spine. She wasn't a leader. She'd just done what had to be done. But the silence around her wasn't emptiness. It was a stage. And history doesn't care who's ready. It only remembers who spoke. She pressed the switch. "My name is Vera Tsai. I was part of Project Silhouette. I helped map and repurpose human memory. We turned minds into monetizable assets. We turned people into products. I wish I could say I didn't know what I was doing, but I did." Her voice echoed through the square. No slogans, no cinematic soundtrack. Just her truth, bare and dry. "I'm not here for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I'm here because silence became poison. And if you're hearing this, if you've seen what I've shown you, then this is your burden too." No cheering, no applause. Just stillness, like breath being held by a city on the edge. Then, from the rooftop, Malik's voice cut through. "They're pulling back." Eyes turned upward. Drones retreating. Defense units disengaging. The armored transports reversing along the perimeter street like startled insects. The signal had come down from somewhere. Maybe a panicked executive? Maybe an AI logic gate finally cracking under the weight of ethical paradox. But it didn't matter. The order was stand down. And just like that, the spell broke. Inside the complex, the remaining children were being lifted out of the tanks. Malik gave her a nod. Last one stable. An old man in a synth coat, face wet with tears, fell to his knees in front of Vera and touched her arm. "I thought my granddaughter was dead," he said, "but I saw her in there. You brought her back." Vera couldn't speak. She just nodded and helped him to his feet. As the night deepened, the neon across the district flickered, no longer blinding, almost quiet, reflective. Ash drifted from the tower vents as the last active servers burned themselves out. Emergency codes flooded darknet boards, corporations scrambling to cover tracks, to bury remaining evidence. But it was too late. The truth had mass. Later, Vera sat on the curb outside the complex. The children were lined up along thermal mats, covered in metallic blankets. Medical drones buzzed around them. Street medics administered sedatives and neurostabilizers. It was crude care, but it was real. One of the kids, a girl, maybe 6, opened her eyes. Hollow, confused, searching. Vera reached out, taking the girl's tiny hand in hers. "You're safe now," she whispered. The girl didn't speak, but she didn't pull away. An hour later, a stencil appeared on the wall behind them. Spray paint on cement, a hand breaking free from circuitry, outlined in red and orange, like flames beneath neon glass. It would spread across the enclaves over the coming weeks. First a symbol, then a signal, then a movement. They called it the reconnection. Not a revolution of weapons, but of memory, of reclaiming what had been stolen, one fragment at a time.